Well, how's it going, guys? Great to have you back on the channel. Hopefully I get this right on the third time, third time lucky, all that kind of crap. I was going to do just a straight up reaction video to Night Terror by Dream Theater, and unfortunately I had some technical hiccups. That meant it just didn't work out audio wise, and I had to pull the video down. So apologies for that, and if you watch that and you don't want to watch this again, then yeah, I totally understand. My bad, but anyway, I think I've managed to get on top of the audio issues, so I'm going to go ahead with this, but rather than it being more of a reaction, because now I've heard the song 4 or 5 times, so it wouldn't be much of a reaction video. So we'll maybe just analyze it a bit, I guess, in retrospect, and just see what we all think of it. I've watched a couple of other people's bits of content where they touch on the topic. I have my own thoughts, and we'll kind of see how everything lands by the time we get to the end of it. Alright, let's get started with the track. So immediately out of the blocks, I'd made the comment in the original video, and I still think this kind of sounds, this intro sounds like Nightmare to Remember in a lot of ways. The kind of big open ringing notes, with the bass drums and the cymbals ringing out, interspersed with those kind of fills, and it's quite a dark and I don't know if sinister's the word. It's a little different with that. It's maybe a little bit more towards kind of creepy. Whereas A Nightmare to Remember is just a little bit more towards the sinister, you might say, but very much in a similar sort of vein. So let's crack on here. Obviously some nice kind of fills and things like that. Nice to see Mike Portnoy back. Love the new monster kit. So yeah, let's continue. Great time for connection issues. Fantastic. Made my bloody day, that has. Anyway, so while my phone is buffering with the terrible 4G here, may as well talk about the fact that 6-string guitar is back. So that was an interesting choice. Noticed that on social media. John Petrucci was talking about using 6-string Majesty guitars on this record. And it's a pretty cool looking guitar, kind of a silver finish, not really a silver sparkle, I don't think, kind of a silver pearlescent. But yeah, the guitar sound is gnarly and bitey and rich and warm and all those things that we've come to expect from Petrucci over the years. The drum sound is nice and live and vibrant, particularly the snare drum sound. Something during the Mike Mangini era, I think, inevitably there's going to be comparisons, right? Portnoy to Mangini, and then Mangini to Portnoy. I think that it took a very long time for them the production team, really, that Dream Theater work with, to really get on top of how to capture Mike Mangini's kit in the best way. And they did eventually get there. I think the first couple of records a lot of the kind of nuance and dynamics were kind of, you know, the drum sounds were maybe a little over controlled, you might say. I think that's probably a fair way to put it. You know, so you couldn't really hear the character of his snare as well, I don't think, as you would Portnoy's. And you didn't really hear the room as well that it was recorded in, you know, like very, very controlled drum sound. And then on the, you know, like Distance Over Time and from, well, really on that record, I feel personally, they, you know, recorded in that really nice big acoustic room with the high ceilings and stuff like that. And I think that and Mangini's kit really came to life in the context of Dream Theater on that record. So yeah, just an opinion, but it's definitely something I think is noticeable. Alright, we've got a connection back, so let's keep going. I don't care where you're from, that's a fucking awesome drum fill. So that was a really cool sequence with the guitar riff and just the overall pace and tempo of it. Really, really rocks, really driving, lots of momentum. Good way to get going in terms of like a first impression. But let's see where the rest of the song takes us, because I have some opinions on this, but we'll listen together. So that whole verse section is pretty cool, right? It kind of backs down a little bit in terms of instrumentation and just in terms of how busy the instruments are. Coming out of that really cool riff section with a double bass drum gives James LaBrie's vocals time and space to breathe. There's a nice little kind of keyboard motif going with the guitar there that just opens up, it opens up spatially, which is quite nice. And then kind of goes back to the double kick driving pattern. I really, really like Myung's bass tone on this. There's something... He's normally got a very warm but kind of wooden bass tone, quite old school in that sense. There's something a little rounder and a little more crisp in the high end and the upper mid range or something like that. Yeah, it's quite tasty. Sounds pretty cool. Let's go and continue on here. Just a quick side note on the vocals, you know, to do with the mix and that kind of thing. Obviously, Dream Theater are known for having these kind of, you know, blossoming, beautiful choruses with layers of vocal work. I mean, not usually not crazy, but like, you know, in the spirit of like a good prog band, you know, like having 2 or 3 different ranged voices. And it was definitely something that we lost when Mike Portnoy left, went on hiatus, whatever transpired, really. I still wonder if they always knew he would come back, and it was just a matter of time. Aside from some of the nasty stuff that obviously transpired. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, something tells me that there was always, that the door was maybe always left open. Anyway, I mentioned that in a previous video, but yeah, sorry, back on topic. When Mangini came on, obviously they knocked it out of the park in terms of finding a drummer that was going to work for the band. I don't think they could have done that any better. But there's no denying that we lost Mike Portnoy's voice from the vocal component of Dream Theater. And sure, there's ways to kind of work that, especially if you're gonna, you know, if the band's like okay with playing to a click or something like that, you can sample it live and that sort of thing. Or you can just do it with the 2 voices, with Petrucci and obviously James LaBrie doing the leads. But I think live, in particular, but also in the studio, there's definitely something to be gained from having Mike there, because Mike's not just a good backup singer, he's a good singer in his own right, and he's got quite a diverse and wide range, so he can kind of go down low, almost like baritone type low. He's good in the mid-range. He can do a little bit of like falsetto type upper range stuff, and so that gives him a lot of flexibility to do a lot of stuff with harmonies, you know. So John Petrucci, obviously not the best singer in the world, but he can hold notes and he sings in that mid-range just fine. And that's great. That's actually really useful, because he can just kind of sit in that middle, and LaBrie can do the hard, you know, really powerful stuff, whether that be you know, mid-range or upper range. And Portnoy can go on either side of Petrucci and fill that up considerably, which he often does. And then of course he's got the kind of metal growl thing that he does as well, which is a big contribution to the band when it's called for. So this is something that I think is a welcome return to the band, and it's something I enjoyed on this track despite my feelings about the chorus. The mix and the backing vocals, the doubled voices and layers of vocals, that kind of space that's created along with what Jordan Rudess does keyboards wise, is something I do enjoy on this track, and I think the mix itself is very strong, as you'd expect from Dream Theater. Cool, so then we've got this kind of pre-chorus into chorus section, and I was kind of harsh on the chorus on my first go at making this video. I still think it lacks a little of that like anthemic, really memorable quality that you got from something like Nightmare to Remember, or even something, say, really old school like Pull Me Under or something like that. And I'll talk about why I think that's kind of important, because this is an interesting track for them to lead with for the record. And since then, watching Metal Pilgrim's video, he touched on some points about some things that he'd heard that would probably substantiate why they chose this track. So it turns out that there's only 8 tracks on the record, allegedly, and they're really super long. It's like a 71-minute record, and like there's like 19-minute songs on it and stuff like that. So it's entirely possible that a lot of the best work that characterizes the record is on the other songs, but they're really long, so it's not practical to release them as a sort of teaser or a single. Where this song relies on a lot of like pre-established Dream Theater tropes, I think. Particularly you hear it in that chorus, and Less so in the pre-chorus. I think the pre-chorus is pretty strong. That whole verse pre-chorus section is really strong, but the chorus itself, it sounds like it's come from the Dream Theater playbook a little, and so does the intro to some degree, right? I'll skip ahead a little bit now that we've covered those bits. I quite like this particular section. Again, goes back to that sort of like creepy crawly kind of vibe that I was mentioning earlier. But again, it's reminiscent of something else I've heard before. I think specifically, if I have this right, it's probably from the kind of middle section, the solo section, going into that kind of area where it picks up, or just before it really like picks up in Octavarium. Ridiculous solo, ridiculously kick-ass, actually, just really kick-ass. Such delicate control over those pinch harmonics, and like so dynamic, using the whole range between like the sort of neck and bridge, and then there's the crazy tapping line. But that sort of introductory flurry of like tremolo picking, that whole passage, like that's insanely fast and controlled and precise. You wouldn't expect anything less from John Petrucci. And lovely drum playing, you know, like in terms of Mike Portnoy, what he's doing to complement that. Yeah, really cool. I think that this middle section, the instrumental section, is my favorite part of the entire composition, because you get to see them let rip just a little bit, and I think everyone kind of needs that a little bit. Now, the thing is, I'm going to leave it there, but the overall tone of this, like I said, it comes out as a bit of a, it sounds like a bit of a play-by-play book of like, I don't know, it's almost like they're trying to make us feel comfortable, you know, like, relax, everything's going to be fine. Dream Theater, it sounds like what you know and what you love and that kind of thing. There's bits of it that remind me of like Systematic Chaos, bits from Octavarium, bits from A Nightmare to Remember. In a lot of ways, it sounds like the record that would have come directly after Black Clouds and Silver Linings had Portnoy never left. which is a little odd. I was expecting more playfulness, more progginess, something maybe a little bit more along the lines of what we got with Liquid Tension Experiment 3. Now, I'm not disappointed. I just think, like others do, like Metal Pilgrims mentioned, that this is probably a bit of a strategic thing. The management and so have probably had some conversations and input on this. And then there's the practicality side, that if the other tracks are just way too long to use as a single, and maybe they've got something else that they're keeping up their sleeves for closer to the time, because I think we're still looking at a February release for this record, you know, which means that this must have just been finished being mixed, and they've completed post on it, and they've obviously got a long way to go with the other tracks or something like that, and then they've got to go to pressing and do artwork and all that stuff. Probably a bit of a Christmas break somewhere in there. So yeah, I think there's some practicalities, but overall I think the track is really good. I really did enjoy it. But I'm not gonna lie, there is just a little smidgen of slight disappointment, not with the playing, not with how the band sounds, but I just thought with Mike being back, the first thing we heard out of them might have been a bit more explosive from a musicality point of view, whereas this is very much like a metal track, with incredible technicality in it, don't get me wrong, but there's nothing that's like challenging maybe for the listener, or there are bits in there, but they're just few and far between. And like I said, with this kind of track, you'd maybe expect that more grandiose, epic, memorable, catchy chorus, whereas this song has something that's kind of short, to the point, but it's a little stock for Dream Theater. It does, like I said, some of the bits sound like they came out the Dream Theater playbook. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and hopefully the audio worked out this time. I got to rush back to work. Right, guys, take care, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.